About myself. I am a proud dog mom. My little Pomeranian is 10 years old and his name is Naveen, like Prince Naveen from The Princess and the Frog. I'm not originally from Missouri. I am a West Coast girly. I'm from Los Angeles, and then I spent most of my adult life on the East Coast in DC. So I always joke that I'm going from a big city to a smaller city to a smaller city in St. Louis. And then one day I'm going to end up in a village somewhere with my goats and my chickens, and it's going to be amazing, and you'll all be invited. And that's a little bit about me. So I'll hand it over to Evette to introduce herself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yvette Bean, and I am a trainer and clinician at the Children's Advocacy Center. I've been in the field for a very long time. Primarily right now, I do have a small caseload of clients, but I'm primarily a trainer, and I do different trainings. Like I do TSCBT is one of the main ones that I do. But I do the workforce development stuff that she's also talking about. My passion kind of lies right now with working with clinicians to be better clinicians. And so wherever I can fall under that, you'll see me light up. You'll see a fire in me. Um, I am originally from East St. Louis, which is a small city on the other side of Missouri, primarily African American city. I do live in St. Louis, but my plan is to actually return back to Illinois when I retire, which hopefully will be in the next 10 years. We shall see. Um, and yeah, so that is me. I am going to allow Katie to introduce herself because she will be our logistics coordinator for this project.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Katie Showers. I am the Training and Logistics Coordinator on the Supervisor Learning Collaborative. I work with MOAX as well as Project Assist. Um, yeah, so all things tech will be you and I's interaction. So that's it.
That's a very humble introduction. Katie will be your point of contact for all email correspondence. If you've got questions about, hey, I didn't get this material or this handout, do you have it? She is your girl. She is the one who will have all of those resources for you. And she's brilliant. She's been at the agency now for 7 years. I'm guessing, I think. We're going to estimate. 7 is the number today for me, apparently. It's what I go with all of my estimations. We also have our colleague, Mickey Lane, who's on the call today, who's part of our team. She just started last week, and so she is joining us to kind of observe and hang out with us. So a big welcome to her. We do have 2 additional training staff for this project. If we go to the next slide, Katie, we have our wonderful colleagues, Ashley Kraft and Stacy Lakey, who are lovely human beings and also just experts in reflective supervision. And so they will be joining us for this project as part of our training faculty. They just couldn't make this call today, so they send their hellos and their excitement at joining this project. They've been with us for all of these cohorts, and this is also a passion project of theirs. They do quite a bit of training on their own as well. All right, so I want to know who's in the room. I recognize several people. I see John, I see Stacy, I see Erica, just lots of friendly faces. If we could put into the chat where everybody is located in Missouri, I want to know that. St. Charles, Springfield, St. Charles, St. Louis, Independence, Joplin,
All over Missouri.
all over the place. Wentzville, Lee's Summit, Kansas City, Union, Springfield, Festus, Florissant, Maryland Heights, I think this might be the first time that we have a really kind of heavy St. Louis area specific call. That's cool. But to all of our folks all across Missouri, that's also really cool. Blue Springs, I've heard is that where? No, that's not where the Black River is. I totally just made that up as well. You are learning today that I know very little about Missouri, and I'm willing to go with whatever pops into my brain. But I could have sworn Blue Springs had a river, but maybe I'm making that up. Well, we're glad to host all of you guys from across the state, and then all of our local friends here in St. Louis to see you guys as well. As we get started today, I do want to take just a quick moment to pause and thank our funder for this project. So the Missouri Child Trauma Network has been graciously funding this work because they really believe in the impact that this can have on children's lives. For those of you who don't know, they're a network of clinicians and advocates who are really dedicated to expanding evidence-based mental health treatment for children who've experienced trauma. And so their big goals are, again, are really to highlight and disseminate those evidence-based models to help improve screening and assessment and referral processes for traumatized children, and really thinking through how can we address systemic barriers to implementation to these services. And so they are a big champion of all of your work, and they're funding this project. So a big, big thank you to them. As far as today goes, we have a couple of things that we do want to go over. And so we'll be discussing what a trauma-informed system of care is, why we need trauma-informed supervision training in Missouri. We'll do an overview of our learning collaborative process, and then we'll discuss a little bit around what some of the pre-work might entail and what you could expect from learning session 1, because there are multiple learning sessions to this year-long project. And so as questions come up for you all, feel free to put them in the chat. If it feels like we can kind of answer them quickly as we go, we'll do that. And if not, we'll save them to the end where we'll have some more time for questions as well. All right, so what is a trauma-informed system of care? We always start here because really we want to ground ourselves in the big why of why are we all doing this work? We do it from different angles and different perspectives, but ultimately we're trying to create this sort of system. And a trauma-informed system of care is one in which providers are able to really realize and understand, on this next slide, Katie, the widespread impact of trauma, and understand also that there are multiple ways to reach recovery and healing, right? So we have that realization that trauma is everywhere. We're able to recognize the signs and the symptoms of trauma in our clients and their families, but also in ourselves as providers. We're able to recognize if we're experiencing vicarious traumatization or secondary traumatic stress. And that then we're able to respond to that recognition with really strong trauma-informed knowledge and practices, right? That we have a good understanding of what we're going to do now that we know that we are working with a client or a system that is impacted by trauma. And all of this is so that we're going to resist re-traumatizing either our clients or even potentially ourselves and our colleagues. And so that definition comes from SAMHSA from several years ago. We very humbly added a 5th R, which is to relentlessly work towards providing equitable services using anti-racist and affirming frameworks, right? Is that we want to do all of this while keeping identity and culture and background and lived experiences in mind, and really just understanding the individuality of human experience. And so not just having this cookie cutter approach for everybody, but really being curious about people's experiences. So this is the ultimate goal, that we are co-creating this trauma-informed system of care so that children who are coming into interaction with us, whether it's a provider in a school setting, whether it's a child at a CAC, whether it is at a private practice, that this system of care is able to hold that child with trauma-informed behaviors and knowledge. And so in order for us to do that well, though, we're going to need some really strong trauma-informed supervisors. And so I have a question for you all. How many of you all, as you became supervisors, received extensive, formal, targeted training on what it means to be a good trauma-informed supervisor? Show of hands. How many of us feel that we got baptized by fire and just are drinking straight from the hose? Yes, right, exactly. Thank you for the laugh, Rachel, because that is exactly what it feels like. Is that we are out here doing our very best, just winging it and living on a prayer, essentially, which is unfair to you all, right? Like, you guys deserve to have the space to be able to feel grounded and centered in how you are supporting your teams, but your teams also deserve that from you. And then ultimately, obviously, our clients and their families deserve that. And so that's where our training offering comes in. And I love this photo because it just really captures the spirit of this Supervisors Learning Collaborative. We did not draw it. Evette and I are not this artistic, though I think Evette could have drawn this. She's leaning into her artistry this year, so maybe.
Actually, it was drawn. It was drawn by one of the participants at one of the learning collaboratives as an assignment. And we've used it almost every time because it illustrates so beautifully what we're trying to accomplish.
Yes, exactly. So the question for the assignment was to kind of, if I'm not mistaken, Evette, this was in the final learning session where they're really trying to represent what they had learned and what their experience had been like during that year-long training. And they came up with this. and kind of that anchoring question of, are you feeling lost at sea in your supervisory role? And they drew it. They drew those stormy clouds and feeling like they were on this little tugboat and they were just kind of on there either by themselves or like one other person with these sharks and giant octopuses kind of roaming around underneath. And there are words there, I don't know if you can read them, but it says overwhelm, staff turnover, and I can't read the other one, but they're really kind of highlighting this feeling of like, I'm at sea and there's all these different predators who are circling around. But they see then at the end there's a kind of like a mooring post, right? We've got a little pier that says reflective supervision and there's sun shining over there. And I think that's what we're trying to humbly offer up, is that if we can give you all and offer you all some strong trauma-informed supervision skills, that it might feel less like you're out at sea by yourself having to fight off the scary sharks who are very hungry and are eyeing your boat. For those of you who are more concrete and not visual learners, we do have this kind of written out for you in a different way. So it's not all doom and gloom, right? There are some really amazing things that have been happening in our field. So over the last 5 years, we know there's been an increase in the number of mental health providers who are trained in evidence-based practices across Missouri, which is amazing. That means that more people have interventions and models that they can turn to that have been proven to work by the research that has been done, which means that the number of children who are receiving evidence-based treatment has increased, which is amazing because the outcomes for that treatment are really good. And so funders are aware of this. And so there's been more funding that's focused specifically on evidence-based practices. And then obviously we know that reimbursement rates for clinicians who use evidence-based practices are higher. So there are lots of really good things that are happening in our field and in Missouri specifically when it comes to evidence-based trauma treatment. Now, the other side of that coin, though, is that to maintain an evidence-based practice within an agency requires a lot of things, right? We have to be using the model to fidelity. We have to be able to have plans to address the turnover shark that we saw in that picture. We have to have some sort of support for supervisors as they are supporting clinicians in learning a new model. We have to think through what organizational change or support is going to be needed in order for clinicians to be able to provide this new model. So all of these other things, right? It's not just let me send my clinician to get a training and then boom, they're going to be able to do it magically and masterfully all on their own, right? How many of us have tried that approach and had a lot of success? Not a lot of us, right? There's a lot of additional work that goes into onboarding and evidence-based practice. And so what we know to be true also is that while it takes a lot of work, unfortunately, a lot of the training models for evidence-based practices don't include some sort of supervision track. And so at MOACS, we really try to emphasize that as much as we can. So whenever we've got the funding and the opportunity to do so, we do have those supervisor tracks. But that's not always possible, either because of time limitations, funding limitations, or just like what the model developers are able to offer up as far as supports. And so that is missing. And so it's hard for clinicians then to continue to deliver that EVP to like a high quality if they're not necessarily able to receive the support that they would need. And then to make things even more complicated, not that that wasn't complicated enough, is that sometimes as supervisors, we are not trained in the EVP that our clinicians are trained in, right? Is that maybe you send off a really strong team of 3 providers who are so excited to be trained in child parent psychotherapy, right? Because your agency really needs an intervention for your littles 5 and under, but you've never done CPP treatment in your life, right? And you're just like, I don't know how to answer this question because I don't know this model that well, right? And so that becomes another complicating factor for supervisors that adds to that feeling of overwhelm and of like, how do I support my team? And so there's just all of these little pieces that begin to kind of add up. I think the other piece too that you all probably feel really acutely, I know we do at our site, is that when we are working with children who are impacted by trauma, it's amazing that we get to use this evidence-based practices, but working almost exclusively with children who've experienced trauma does increase our own risk for secondary traumatic stress exposure. which can lead then to increased burnout, to staff turnover, and lots of other complicating factors. And so all of these things are to say, we really were thinking about this and what we wanted to offer up. And we wanted to make sure that not only were you as supervisors getting what you needed and your providers getting what they needed, but that children were really able to receive the best possible care. Because when evidence-based trained clinicians stop using a model or are not able to deliver it effectively, and supervisors feel overwhelmed or ineffective, maybe because they don't have the skills or the knowledge of that evidence-based model, and there's secondary traumatic stress exposure, what we know then is that the children are the ones who are impacted most, right? That they may not be receiving the kind of care that we would want to give and that we're investing in and that we're sending our clinicians to get trained up on. And so that's where our little training comes in. And I say little, but it's not little because it's a year-long offering. And there are multiple goals to it. So obviously, always we're thinking about our children, and so wanting to improve outcomes for them, and so wanting to reduce PTSD symptoms for them, wanting to ensure that they're able to get connected to services on a timely manner and are able to receive those evidence-based services. But then also, I think the heart of what our goal is for this learning collaborative is to increase the number of supervisors who really feel confident in their ability to effectively support their clinicians in screening and assessing and treating trauma. That you guys feel much more confident in being able to provide supervision of an evidence-based model to fidelity, even if you're not trained in that model necessarily. That you're really thinking through and are able to kind of sustain the implementation and onboarding of these practices. And then I think one of mine and Evette's personal favorites, that you're able to really kind of safeguard your team and yourselves against secondary traumatic stress. And so those are our big, big, big lofty goals. I think I'm going to hand it over to Evette to talk about how we go about that. Correct?
Yep. So I think that, again, just looking at the goals, again, we want to retain competent supervisors. One of the things that we recognize is that most of you guys are in positions of supervisors, not because you're great supervisors, but because you were great workers. Right? And so there was not a whole lot of training about being a supervisor, which makes this unique because it actually talks about being a supervisor and it's agnostic of any evidence-based model. And that's the beauty of it, right? So we're going to strengthen the workforce for the child serving professionals. And we're introducing one of my favorite parts about this is that we are building a community. Right? We have supervisors who are now in working relationships with other supervisors in a network where you can learn to support one another. And this truly has been one of my favorite parts about this community is just seeing you guys come together and support one another, right? So that's part of the goal. And how we're going to do that? We're going to do that over a year's time. And it's going to be a whole event. And today is the first day of that event, right? You're here at our launch event. Today is the first day of the rest of your lives. I always wanted to say.
That was a big commitment.
We're here at this launch event. And after the launch event, then you have learning session 1, which is where we meet in Jefferson City. And we're there for 2 days. And it's the beginning of everything, right? The second learning session is a little different. It is half days and it's virtual, right? So we give you that rest in between. And then the third session, again, we meet back in Jefferson City. And Jefferson City is kind of like the middle of the state where everybody can get to in an hour or two. So that's part of the reason why we chose that location. And that's where the funders are. Go ahead.
Can I jump in to give a little bit more detail on each of the topics of the learning sessions?
Mm-hmm.
So in our first learning session, we're going to really hone in on the foundations of just general, good, strong, best practice in trauma-informed supervision. And so like Evette said, this is agnostic of any treatment intervention. So this is not specific for TFCBT supervisors or EMDR supervisors or whatever intervention you could be thinking of, right? This is just really strong foundations of strong trauma-informed supervision. And we begin to lay plant the seeds. I was going to say lay the eggs, and I was like, we're not laying any eggs, but we are planting the seeds for reflective supervision.
I'd like to lay an egg.
Girl, get
I'd
out
like
of
to
here.
see you lay one. Let's make it happen.
I vote they don't witness us do any of that. In learning session 2, that's where we really begin to discuss more in depth the supervision of evidence-based practices. And so kind of thinking through what is required of you all, what skills do you want to begin to develop or continue to develop and strengthen around supporting evidence-based practices specifically. And then we come back for our final learning session. And I'll be honest and say that that learning session is mostly kind of facilitated by our colleagues, Stacy and Ashley. And that's really around the principles of reflective supervision. So as many of you guys know, supervision actually has a lot of theories to it. So there are different theories of supervision, and they fall in alignment with different kinds of values or worldviews. Yes, learning session 3 is also 2 days as well. Good question, Courtney. And reflective supervision just happens to be one of the theories of supervision. We really like it because it takes this holistic approach to your providers, right? Is that it's addressing how they show up as professionals, but also how who they are as people shows up into their role as professionals. And so that is the theoretical framework that that reflective supervision leans into. So it's very humanistic, very individualistic, and is I feel like I learn a whole lot every single time that I listen to Stacey and Ashley talk about those principles. So that'll be the biggest focus of learning session 3.
I also just wanted to add that throughout each of these learning sessions, we are sprinkling in secondary traumatic stress. We are sprinkling in diversity, equity, and inclusion. We are talking about the very real issues that come to the table through each learning session. And so you will get a little bit of that and also learn some new skills like problem-based learning and different things of that. So there's so many elements to this while we are building a community.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I like to, yes, Erica, PBL is our favorite too, problem-based learning. I really like to think of this learning collaborative as something that you do, not because you're trying to get certified in anything, right? We're not going to, at the end of the day, certify you in something. Oh, and I do want to be clear. This learning collaborative is not a reflective supervision learning collaborative where at the end of the day, you're trained on how to be a reflective supervisor. There are entire trainings for that. This is a trauma-informed supervision learning collaborative where at the end of our year-long process, you'll have a diverse toolbox of different techniques and skills that you can pull from in strengthening your supervision and support of your teams. And reflective supervision frameworks are part of that. But yeah, so I like to think about this as an opportunity for you as an individual to invest in yourselves as professionals and your current roles. Because like Evette said, very much like us as trainers, we didn't go to school to become trainers. We went to school to become really good clinicians. And then we fell in love with being able to help other clinicians become strong clinicians. And that's how we kind of fell into these roles later in life. I would imagine that a lot of us as supervisors have fallen into that category as well, where you were a really great provider and then you wanted to support your team, or maybe that was a way to kind of move upward in your agency. And so this is an opportunity for you to really kind of take some time for yourself and gather the skills that you need for your role specifically, right? That this is for you.
So there is some pre-work that's associated with learning session. We're going to talk about the pre-work in learning session 1. We can keep going, Katie. So we want you to watch the NTCSN video of 12 core concepts. It is available on their website, but I also believe that you will get a follow-up email with that link. Review the NTCSN secondary traumatic stress core supervision competency. Again, you'll get a link to all of that. And review the Missouri model of trauma-informed care. We want you to do these things because it prepares you as you come in to begin those conversations that we're going to have. And as people who are, we want to be trauma informed. I will tell you that for me, informed is not the information. It's how we apply the information. So yes, we're going to give you all this information to do pre-work with, but then we're going to show you how to apply the information. And that's what the learning collaboratives are all about. So I always say trauma informed is not about the information, it's about how you walk into a room and use that information. So just that's what the pre-work is all about, trying to set you up so that you can be successful. And so before the first learning session, we want you to kind of to reflect on your own experience as a supervisor, what your goals are, what you hope to accomplish. I even want you to think about your disappointments as a supervisor, what you thought it was going to be and what it actually is. I want you to think about all those things coming in because we're going to kind of dig deep and we're going to build your own supervisory story. We want you to review the code of ethics for supervisors, or your statute or your discipline. Some of you may be LPCs, some of you may be MSWs, whatever it is, look at those core competency. We also recognize that some of you may not be clinical supervisors. Some of you may be administrative supervisors. We are not forgetting you. Yes, we're going to talk about the role of clinical supervisor, but we're going to also talk about the administrative supervisor. And we're going to wrap it all up and we're going to introduce you to reflective supervision. So the goal is, again, agnostic of model, but also orientation as well.
Mhm.
So, and again, we want you to prepare to learn and have fun. Listen, if you have not figured out that me and Ale goofy, welcome to the party. Okay. We totally like to have fun. We pick at each other. Once we get to know you, we'll pick at you. I think there's a few people,
Lovingly pick at you.
there are people in the room that's worked with us before, and they will tell you that this is absolutely the truth. We like to have fun, right? So come prepared for that.
Yeah. We genuinely get really, really excited for this learning collaborative because it's a time for us to be in community with other folks who are doing very similar work. And I don't know about you guys, but I feel like supervision and management can sometimes feel really lonely because you're having to hold a lot of information that you can't necessarily always share with your teams, but it's impacting your teams. And you're having to make decisions that sometimes weigh heavy on your heart, and you're having to prioritize things. And you're like, how do I choose between this and that? And it can be a lonely spot to be in. And so I don't know. I just love the opportunity to be in community with other supervisors and discuss the types of issues and barriers that we are facing as supervisors. It's just a really fun thing. Evette will make you do the hokey pokey, I guarantee you, but only if you look sleepy. If you look wide awake, she won't do it. So put on your best game face.
It's
Um,
not always the hokey pokey.
a lot of times. But if there's, I know there's a lot of, oh, thanks, Wendy. I know there's a lot of curiosity, at least coming from Erica, around what are the actual dates, woman? Just tell me when I have to be there and I'll be there. So for those of you who are eager, you've at least come to the first thing today, our information call. You're getting information around what we're offering. Our applications will go live essentially after this call is done, and they will be open and due on February the 18th. Which is a Wednesday. So that is about almost a month's time from now. So you have like a month to really kind of think through and decide if this is something that you're able to kind of commit to and lean into for this upcoming year. And then we will actually, in warp speed, review all of those applications and send out notifications by February 25th. So once we do that, we'll ask in that notification that you confirm your spot. Because this is a grant funded opportunity, there are limited spots. So we do ask that once you are accepted, that you confirm that spot. And if you no longer can attend for whatever reason, to let us know. So in case we end up having a wait list, which we've had in the past, that we're able to move into those wait list spots. Our first learning session is right around the corner in March. So it'll be March 31st and the 1st, and that'll be in Jefferson City. And then our second learning session is June 8th and 9th, which is a virtual setting. And then we'll come back again for our last time at the end of summer on August 11th and 12th. And we'll be back in Jefferson City for that. What are the times of the sessions? Great question. So typically for our in-person sessions, it's a day long. So we'll meet, usually I think registration opens at 8:30 and then we go until about 4:30. We try to keep a temperature of the room. And if you're starting to really lose steam, we might end a little bit early so you can go get some dinner. Lunch is provided when you're in Jeff City with us. So we'll feed you for sure and we'll have snacks. And then our virtual sessions typically run, Evette, correct me if I'm wrong, 9 to 12.
That's
Central.
correct.
Yeah. Good questions. I'm going to leave this slide up here, but we're naturally have moved into the space where we're able to answer any of the questions that you might have. So feel free to keep popping them into the chat, or you can come off mute and ask them off mute. What, if any, questions do you all have? Will you become our besties? Yes. Will we have the best snacks? Yes. Will you fall in love with Katie even though she rarely ever speaks in the group? Also, yes.
You will want to keep Katie. That usually will happen. Have you ever turned anyone down from joining? I don't think that we generally, if we turn someone down, it's because we didn't have the space. But they're always welcome to apply again the next year. But I don't think that we generally do. The only way we would is if you weren't a supervisor, and we don't usually get applications for people who are not.
So essentially the prerequisites to participate is that you supervise a team, whether that is as a clinical supervisor or as an administrative supervisor of a clinical team, and that you're able to commit to the learning sessions. And then we would only turn you away, like Evette said, if we maxed out. So for this year, our cohort will be capped at 30 people. And so we'll have 30 spots.
I think that Dustin's going to be my new bestie.
Will we get swag? Yes, you will, girl. You know how we roll. We love
we always give swag, always.
For those of you who have trained with us in the past, we believe in incentivized learning. And so we do have prizes that we give out. So volunteer to answer questions or be the first to present or one of those things, and we will have prizes. Am I eligible living and practicing in Kansas? Ooh, Betsy. I'm assuming like Kansas State, not Kansas City, Missouri side, correct?
Correct. So I'm registered with MOAX, and I did my training, but I'm in Kansas, the state.
So Betsy, I'm gonna say, unfortunately for this project, no. But we are looking to expand the project to where we will do it independently of our funders. And so look for opportunities.
Betsy, where in Kansas are you?
I practice at the Elizabeth Layton Center, which is in Franklin and Miami County. So it's south of Kansas City, like an hour in a rural community.
I'm not going to rule you out, okay, Betsy? Let me check with our funder since you're right along the border, and we'll get right back to you, okay? If you would be so kind as to shoot your email to Katie directly, and I'll check with our funders, again, since you're right along the border, and especially since you're in a rural area, I know our funders really care about that as well. I wonder if we could finagle.
Okay, and I totally understand. No worries if it doesn't work out.
I mean, what I'm saying, and this is for anybody in the room, if you're not able to come to this learning session, there will be future learning sessions. That's one. But also just keep looking at MOAX website because you never know what's coming up. We're always trying to do something. And it's not just for Missouri. We do nationwide type stuff.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I love Brooke, I love your question. Where you're like, what all do I have to actually do? Because I've got a lot on my plate and what are the requirements? So I will say this. In between learning sessions, we don't give you homework that you then have to turn in. We will obviously be recommending readings or things of that nature, but that is kind of for your benefit and not like you have to like have a capstone project at the end of the year-long process. We do have like daily eval surveys that we do when we're training, but that's really just to give us feedback on the training. And we don't actually collect data around your supervisees at this point. And so there isn't a whole lot of additional administrative tasks. We really try to design this training with you all in mind of like, what would you guys need? And a whole bunch of data entry doesn't sound like is what you guys would need. So there won't be any of that for you.
But there are consultation calls.
Yes.
So in between sessions, we do meet once a month in a consultation call. And during that time, what the expectation is that you participate in the calls, right? But we talk about reflective supervision, we talk about administrative supervision, and you bring your needs to the table, and we kind of help you work through those needs in a consultation setting. And I honestly have to say that it's been one of the people who've gone through the training, they love the consultation calls so much that they don't want them to end. That's how powerful they are.
Yeah. Doug, your question. So you're saying you're not a supervisor here in Missouri, but you're creating child-centered trauma-informed solutions to help families. The feedback from professionals helps improve the technology you're building. Maybe we could chat more on offline around your specific situation, because this is specifically geared towards supervisors, but I'd love to learn more about what you're doing and other ways that we could possibly collaborate. So for sure, let's chat offline. Nichelle,
So,
do we pay for lodging? Yes. So while the actual training itself is free, so we will have materials and books and prizes and all of these things for you. We do not have it currently in the funding to be able to provide lodging as well. So you'll have to pay for yourself to get to Jefferson City when we're there and to pay for that overnight stay. For some folks, we who are, you know, not super far away, we've seen them drive in the morning of, so they only have to do one night versus two. And so we definitely also have recommendations around which hotels to stay at in Jefferson City. Yes,
um,
Sarah. Oh, go ahead.
did we cap off at 30 people? Is that
We
the
sure
number
did.
that we cap at? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So, Tiffany, I hope you get to attend this time. We do have people who they plan to attend, and then something comes up at work and they're unable to attend, and it happens all the time. But I can tell you that almost every year we have been funded for this, and hopefully we will continue to be funded for it. Um, we do offer contact certificates, so you'll get certificates of attendance that say that you've had 8 contact hours or whatever that is, and so we do offer that.
Mm-hmm. John, I love your question, always looking out for the rest of your team. So I would say that a lot of the knowledge that you would gain, John, that you can share back with Sarah and say, like, this, let's try this approach or let's incorporate this. Full on train the trainer, not so much, but I do think a lot of it is something that you can easily share with your partners. Good questions. Any other questions? I did say we offer meals when we're in Jefferson City for lunch. The dinner, you're on your own. Any other big logistical pieces? I think those are the ones that come to my mind.
Yeah. I can
I
say that
hope. Oh, go ahead.
having gone through this several times, being a trainer through this is probably one of the most rewarding things that I've done. Because I do think as supervisors, you're kind of like this island all to yourself. And this sense of community that we build is just amazing. It is
Yeah.
absolutely amazing.
So Jennifer, we offer contact hours, and so contact hours are essentially the same thing as CEUs, but they're slightly different. But we do offer contact hours and certificates at the end of each day. If you have another colleague that may be interested but weren't able to be here, can we? Yes, Lauren. So we actually, that's why we recorded today's session. So we will be sending out the recorded version to this to anybody who registered. So you'll have it because you registered, and feel free to share this with any colleagues that you think would be a good fit. So you don't have to have come to this event to be eligible to apply.
So Kim, I don't but right now we don't have that possibility where we're doing the virtual in-person mashup type of thing. And some of the events that we do for those are so hands-on that you kind of have to be in the room because there's a lot of activities and things of that nature. So unfortunately, I can't say that that's going to be possible, but I do understand not wanting to miss your daughter's senior events. So maybe it's not this go round for you, maybe it's next go round.
And like I said, this is a grant funded project, so it would depend on us, getting funded, which we've been really fortunate that this funder is really dedicated to you all. So hopefully that would happen. But Kim, that wouldn't be until next year. So this is a yearly occurrence. Yes,
Thank
Erica, we
you.
can send out the slides as well. You're so welcome, Brooke. All right, so I think we'll wrap up here. If I'm a trauma-informed care specialist that trains supervisors oh,
I
that's
would think
interesting,
so.
Kelly.
I
I
think
say go ahead and apply
I
because
said I would think so.
you're technically supervising somebody, right?
Yeah.
So go ahead,
Even
Kaylee,
if
and just in your application be real specific, so that we can have as much information as possible.
you know others in your state who are licensure supervisors, administrative supervisors, clinical supervisors, just tell them about the project. Pass it along.
we're going to stay on to see who, like, for these eligibility questions, but I did want to put the last slide back up on the screen, Katie. It's got my contact information. I will tell you this, if you have a question, you're much better off shooting an email to the moax at UMSL email account, and Katie will filter it up to me. Otherwise, you might, if I'm being really honest, because I believe in transparency, you might get lost a little bit in my inbox. So your first go-to would be Katie, and then she'll funnel it back to me if she can't answer the question herself. But I want to make sure you had that email address if you had further questions.
Thanks,
Thanks, Lauren. That's so sweet.
Courtney, I will say that I would go ahead and put in the application, but I will tell you that if you're not actively supervising someone and we have to waitlist you, you would probably be waitlisted.
Yeah, but I would say go ahead and apply,
Yeah,
Courtney, because
definitely apply.
it sounds like your supervision is what you'll be doing. So just go ahead and apply. Lauren, your comment made my whole day. I'm gonna go back and tell our other TF trainers so that I'm gonna tell Matt, I'm gonna tell Kate, I'm gonna tell everybody so that they'll feel good too. I appreciate that.
Yes, you will, Carol. Carol, you do qualify. You don't have to be licensed. Again, this is agnostic of model, of orientation. This is about being a good skilled supervisor.
Because Carol, I'm assuming that your specialist might be in a position to screen and refer clients over, and so we want to be able to support you in that as well. Good call. All righty, folks, we are almost Chris, I have to tell Amy too.
Oh my goodness, we got so many people in here. Look, Wendy and
I know if I could so for those of you who've been with us for a while know that Amy Escott, one of our good colleagues, is no longer with us and has on her own adventure, but she would obviously want me to say hello to all of you guys because she loves you guys so much. So I'll let her know that some ITCT shout outs went out as well.
Katie's doing some shameless plugs. We do have another information call, another MTCN project, which would also be TF training that's coming up. That call is tomorrow. What time is it, Katie?
I think it's at noon.
At noon? Okay.
No, I lied.
Tomorrow at 10 a.m.
10 a.m.
So that's actually a really good point. So in the same way that we're offering this free training, the same funder also funded a TFCBT training for providers. So if you yourself are a TFCBT provider or trained, or you have new team members who are needing to become certified, please do come to that info session tomorrow, or make sure you register so that you at least get the video recording. That training is not a learning collaborative, so there won't be multiple learning sessions. It'll be a singular learning session with consultation, and it'll meet all the requirements for rostering. And so if you're needing any new clinicians or team members that are coming through, do highly recommend that. Alrighty, folks. I think that is the end of today. Where can we find the link? Nichelle, Katie will drop the link for the registration for tomorrow in a second. Or if she doesn't get it in time for the end of this call, she'll email it out to the crew.